Welcome back. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. Our big focus this hour, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has apologized after the company removed a video featuring Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a move that triggered sharp criticism in Parliament. During a meeting with the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Communications and IT, Meta representatives acknowledged the error and expressed regret over the incident, but the apology did little to satisfy members of the committee. MPs questioned Meta over its content moderation policies, the transparency of its algorithms, the protection of user data and its compliance with Indian laws. The committee also raised the issue of safe harbor protections, with members questioning whether platforms that repeatedly fail to meet their legal obligations should continue to enjoy immunity from liability for user-generated content. This rare apology from one of the world's biggest tech giants has once again put the spotlight on the growing clash between global social media platforms and India's lawmakers. Joining us live is Wing Commander S. Sudhakaran, a tech expert. We also have Jayjeet Bhattacharya, President CDPR, live with us. Khushbu Jain, advocate and cyber lawyer, joins us live. Mithali Nikore, economist, is also joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Srinivasa Padmanabhuni, AI assurance specialist, also joins the panel. Let me make a start with you first, Wing Commander Sudhakaran. What do you make of these big developments that have panned out through the day today with, of course, Meta officials being summoned by the union government, appearing before them, and also the climb down that we've seen from the social media giant ever since this controversy broke?
The things have started showing out. We have now started paying up for what actions we have not taken in the last 15, 20 years. This is something that we always knew that it was coming, and it was not that the establishment was not briefed. Maybe was briefed, and I'm telling you, I personally briefed them, that this is going to increase. What you saw in Delhi last month, the cockroaches which were almost about to enter the parliament, was thanks to Meta's Instagram and WhatsApp. 20 million followers in 1 week, that is an algorithm which got biased to prop up a case which, probably they put up a social cause. I am for that. Yes, we need to cleanse the system up. But that was not what happened in Delhi. 2,800 criminals dawned into that. Who was behind it? Meta was behind it. And Meta has been doing this not once. 2024, they paid 250 crore fine. That was what they were penalized for. In fact, when we were in IIM Bangalore, one of our professors used to say that, these social media giants would go walk up to government offices and tell them, what is the fine that we need to pay for the next year? You please tell us, we are more than happy to pay. If we think that we can create a law and we can actually bridle these monsters, we are sadly mistaken. These are deep state agents. They have been unleashed on India with a purpose, and that is why China, as early as 1998, started the Great Golden Shield program. That's why you don't see any of these work there. India should have done that, because today Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram knows exactly where you sit, who is sitting on the wall, who is vulnerable, and it can target and poison the minds with targeted information, peddled information, and propaganda which suits the Western narrative. When the 2020 riots happened in Delhi, you just go and look at the narrative that was shared in Twitter and in Facebook. It was made to look as this country of majority, which incidentally was on the receiving end. Today, there is a counselor who has got just recently penalized and punished for that. But what was the narrative that was being peddled? This government is to be held accountable for it, not because they are not standing up to it, because they're not coming up with the right policies. We should have pursued an indigenous social media program policy. I'm just asking one question to the audience today. What if Meta showed two fingers today? If they said, no, I'm not apologizing, what would have happened? If the country would have dared to ban them, thinking that they would have hit on their revenue, I'm telling you, these cockroaches, plus the opposition parties, would have said that they are stifling your right of free speech, of social media, and the influencers who are willing to sell the credentials of the Indian Army, the RAF, the security forces, just for virality, will again go sit there and will bring the government back to the knees. That is what is potentially likely to happen. You're sitting on a tinder box. And that is why I urge the government, better late than never, start a plan. I'm not asking to create another Facebook against a Facebook. But can we do something better? We can. The problem is the government doesn't allow people to work. For this, you need state support, you need policy backing, and you need a hell of a lot of money to do it. What is Meta's revenue from the digital platform? I had flagged this in 2021 to the Defense Cyber Agency as well as the National Security Council. The digital advertisement market revenue in India is 90,000 crores. This 90,000 crores is fueling, funding, agents which are acting against the interest of India. And now comes the new angle called AGI. The complete data stream today, the real-time data pipeline, you are giving Sarvam, just about 4,000 odd GPUs and asking them to build a frontier model. Where will those poor guys build it from? You need real-time data pipelines, you need a nationwide architecture, and you need investments of the order of at least 5 lakh crores. You are not willing to take a decision on any of these things. You are more interested in the legacy distribution of freebies. The only hope that we have is in this government, and this government will be targeted if they are found wanting on both the IT and the AI front. That's all that I have to say. And if we don't open our eyes, if we don't read the red flag today,
yes.
Today the cockroaches have announced one more thing, that they are getting into social.
Let me bring you in here, Dr. Srinivas Padmanabhuni as well, because the fact is, Dr. Srinivas, that many believe that this accountability was not sought early on the social media apps, which is why they were let off the loose very, very easily. Just sorries would do. Do believe in this case, though, a mere sorry is not going to do. The parliamentary panel on IT and communications, and in fact got the Lok Sabha secretary to shoot off a letter to the union government seeking action under the IT Act.
Yeah, you see, all of that is if everything was done fair, right? But where is the fairness? If you have algorithmic unfairness, right? You are prioritizing certain section kind of, so-called messaging and amplifying it to gather orders of tens of million users in a short span, versus you are stifling another version of the narrative. I personally feel from any angle of fairness, you take statistical fairness, parity odds ratio, anything, you take any statistical concept of fairness, where is it? Where is the fairness? That is, I think, what is missing. So that also, gives a credence to government stand that, the section 79, whatever they were asking about, immunity for content development by somebody else, who they are not responsible, but they are clearly responsible. They are not plain intermediary. They are manipulating the content from the original creators before it reaches the target audience. So therefore, they are not plain intermediaries. So I don't see why they should continue the kind of so-called benefit of doubt of the so-called section 79, that they are intermediaries, so they should be given the right of all that indemnity. So I think we have to be clear about the outcomes. The outcomes are clear. There has been demonstrated bias. There has been demonstrated algorithmic actions which are not in favor of the country. There have been demonstrated extensive involvement by the IT company, which is not pure so-called middleman, which is just passing through. Given all that, there is a fair sense of accountability, the Meta is responsible for. So when you talk about responsible AI, it's very clearly about holding accountability, holding responsibility for fair outcomes, holding responsibility for something which can cause, some kind of a, problem of misinformation like deepfakes or even CSAM. This is very important. This is very important. And we're not asking something very different. Indian government is asking what globally is the best standard. If you look at Australia with their act, or European Union, or even what is being asked for in US government, we're not asking something very different. So all we're asking is, let's be fair. Let's be accountable. Let's be getting your act together and be responsible for the outcomes, which are definitely not acceptable by not just the government but by the broader Indian audience. As you know, the panel is already working towards an opinion, which is we are in for something we don't anticipate. Today it could be just elections. Tomorrow it could be something which is about framing the whole next generation. Imagine Gen Z, then imagine Gen Alpha, which is totally the Instagram plus. I don't know, maybe next generation will be Instagram plus WhatsApp, some platform. They will be manipulated. So tomorrow life is social. It's not going to be only physical, right? More and more social, more and more online. It means their whole opinion will be governed by that. If that is controlled by a big tech, the responsibility of that is basically falling on the government, that in order for ensuring safety, security, and basic civil rights of citizens, it has to be more proactive. All I'm saying is, okay, we don't want it to be extreme authoritarian, but at least what we should do is we should have civil requirements. What is requirement for civil liberty to be not trampled upon. All I'm saying is that. So multiple points, but I personally think these platforms are not plain intermediaries. They are way beyond that. They are extremely manipulative. So there is no question of continuing the as usual, indemnity, Section 79, all that which is granted to them. So I think there is a significant, and that also brings us to the question which was already asked about sovereign AI, right?
Right.
We need to invest.
Okay. Let me also quickly get in Mithali Nikore. Mithali Nikore, of course, at the end of the day, of course, these social media giants are scaling up their business in India, but are they as accountable, as responsible as they should be? With great power does come great responsibility. Have they behaved in that manner, Mithali Nikore, is the big question. And if not, then should they be liable? As now all indications are the government will make them be.
Absolutely, Uday. And I think, what they have been doing for all of this time, what all social media platforms, it's not about Meta or A or B, this is not the debate. The debate is any social media platform will favor, a situation where more traffic comes on their platform. That's the basic economics of it. At the end of the day, if there is a protest going on, if there is a situation where more young people are engaging with content on my platform, it means I can charge higher rates for the ads that are featured on my platform. It means I can charge, the creators on my platform, I can levy a greater cut on them, I can levy a greater fee on them. All the brands that advertise on my platform, all the brands that want to list on the social commerce portion of my platform, on the WhatsApp business, etc., I can charge all of them more. So very honestly, this is entirely about the economics and what makes sense at the time of the economics. So at the end of the day, the punitive actions should be targeting the economic part of this. How does this hit them economically? How do we actually regulate in the long term how they are making money off of the Indian population, of the consumer, of the MSMEs, of the women, everybody who is using these platforms from an economics perspective? Back to you there.
Okay, let me in fact quickly also join Jayjeet Bhattacharya. Jayjeet Bhattacharya, the fact is that this is something which was not expected by many. This kind of buckling down of Meta, the fact that this apology has come in, and a written one at that, and the way, of course, now Meta is seeking to make amends. Has this come because of the grilling? Has this come because of the pressure? Has this come also because of the public sentiment that they see? Jayjeet Bhattacharya?
Yeah, I think all of that, Uday, we must recognize the fact that the largest user base for each of the platforms of Meta is in India. So any disruption in that platform, especially at a time when Meta is not able to pivot into AI and is losing credibility in being represented as the next generation of platform, it is important that it consolidates and keeps and ensures that India as a market stays with the Meta platforms, which is Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook. and therefore they had to issue the apology. But this is really in contrast, and it's transient in nature, as many of my co-panelists have mentioned, that the power equation is not really in favor of the Indian government, because the will of the government cannot be imposed, and this is basically what technological sovereignty, or the lack of it, is really about. Because if tomorrow the government actually went ahead and stopped any of the platforms of Meta, then the narrative would be that the government is being authoritarian, that the government is stifling free speech, and so on and so forth. In addition, I'm still wondering why the government is not adopting what most of the advanced economies have adopted, which is stopping social media for 16-year-olds and below. And I think that would lead to a lot of leveraging power that the government will have, and it's also for the benefit of the society. So there will be multiple issues that can be addressed if the government goes ahead and adopts what Australia and many of the European countries have adopted, banning social media for those who are below 16 years of age. The other thing we need to keep in mind is, what really was or is safe harbor is that what the government says, as per Article 17 of the Article 79 of the Information Technology Act, is that, look, Meta is or Facebook is completely innocent. It's just a platform. Other people put content in it, and they don't interfere. What showed up in their interference with the Prime Minister's video is that they're clearly interfering. So they're not innocent. They're active participant in curating what is there on the platform. If they're an active participant in curating what is there on the platform, then they are obviously liable. And then therefore they should be liable for everything that's come on the platform. And this is not the first time that they're doing so. Earlier, for Mahathir Mohamad also, who was the Malaysian Prime Minister, they had taken off his video without any consent, and it was unilateral. And also, we need to keep in mind that these digital platforms are like utilities. It's like your electricity being provided. It's like your water being provided. Imagine if the water company suddenly stops water because they don't like you, or the electricity company stops electricity for 5 hours just because they don't like you. Similarly, when digital utilities stop, it impacts businesses, it impacts life, it impacts our regular way of working, and therefore it's significantly detrimental for the economy and for those who are involved. And therefore, as we move forward, it is important that India develops leverages, which could be in the form of alternate platforms, which could be in any other alternate forms. But we need to have the leverage to make sure that the will of the government is imposed immediately. Also, putting the video back after 5 hours does not help. If many of your viewers will recollect that in 2012 in Bangalore, large-scale riots against northeastern students was triggered because of what came up in WhatsApp and other social media platforms. And if after 5 hours they start listening to the government, well, the harm is already done. Even now, how many people who did not see that video will know that that video came out in time, and that's what the Prime Minister said. And the Prime Minister's job is to reach out to the country, and if that is blocked, it is an affront to the country, and it's a attack on the country. So these issues need to be looked at with great alacrity, and it's been decades that we're talking about it. We need to resolve it at this stage now.
Okay, let me in fact quickly also rope in Khushbu Jain. Khushbu Jain, what do you make of the last 24 hours, how they panned out? Do you also believe, a wider question, Khushbu, that the IT Act needs to be strengthened further, or are the provisions right now adequate? It's just about the implementation. Khushbu Jain, can you hear me? Okay, I think we're having some issues with your connection. All right, Vikamara Sudhakaran, that same question to you. Is the IT Act strong enough? Does it need to be strengthened further, or is it about the implementation? Again, something you have also been speaking about on previous instances as well.
See, first you will have to understand, everyone is asking this question, whether India can punish Meta. The answer is outright no, and better we understand this as a country. If we think we can do that, we are living in a fool's paradise, and I'll tell you why. The global revenue of Meta is 200 odd billion all over the world. From India, they raise something like 2.7, and that is the best reported figure, which is 1.3% of their revenue, just about 1.3%. So economically, it doesn't hurt them. The user base, yes, it is 1/5 of the world user base, but mind you, it is only generating 1.3% of the revenue. Why Meta is here is for an altogether a very different purpose. Because strategically, the US looks at it from a very different angle. Mind you, the same US supports the Pakistani nuclear program, which is targeted against India. This is another kind of a program which is to keep India in leash. Indian government needs to understand it. Our strategic think tank needs to understand this. So first, please understand that we cannot punish Meta. Second is, even if you try to take penal action, say ban Meta, it's not happening because 65% of this country will be on streets, guided by the opposition, anti-nationals who are sitting into the parliament. I've just heard one MP tell Meta that you don't need to kneel down in front of the government. We will support you. You all know who that MP is. Now, if that is the kind of unity that we have in the parliament, for something that they have done against the constitutional authority of this country, I think we have a case to do something drastically different. Can you legislate and get your way out of it? The answer is no. There is no law that can curb any AI or any technology, whatever you can do. You can probably extract penalties out of it.
Right.
They will pay, they will go. Second thing I want to complete is you can only get out of this by building your way out of it. And that is something where India needs to concentrate.
Dr.
We missed this
Padmanabhan,
bus.
Dr. Padmanabhan, what does India need to concentrate on as we look at this now in a wider aspect, not just restricted to Meta alone, but wider for the entire sector as a whole, more accountability, more responsibility?
Yeah, that can go one way, but you should understand that the permanent solution is sovereign chip, sovereign interconnect, sovereign middleware, sovereign app layer, sovereign LLM layer, sovereign agentic layer. So that requires investment. It cannot be like I have 10,000 crore I'm distributing among 10 companies. That's not the level of investment I'm talking about. I'm talking about a billion-dollar investment into the stack, sovereign stack. Do we have that wherewithal? Do we have that guts? Do you have that wherewithal or even direction from the overall establishment that we stand out, so that we can have a Baidu, we can have a WeChat, which can counter, or we can have a DeepSeek, or latest one Kimi, which can counteract the dominance of American big tech. So I'll give you the reason why we have to be worried, because the moment some tap is closed on any of these layers, right, from chip layer or interconnect layer, or it could be LLM layer, we are in deep soup. Our technology stack, maybe we have some leeway in sovereign LLMs like Bharat Gen or LLMs like Sarvam, but that's a very limited.
Okay. So going sovereign is the way forward. I think Dr. Jaideep Bhattacharya, I'll leave you the last part. Okay, Khushbu, I think, is back with us. Khushbu, I'll come back to you for a first and last comment, but yes, closing comment, Dr. Bhattacharya.
No, I think exactly what is being mentioned, that we need to have our own sovereign platforms, but it doesn't happen overnight. There are tons of money required. The government did support Coup as an alternate for Twitter, and that did not really take off. We were a little late, and that has a deep impact. Also, some of the laws needs to be tightened up, and when we have these platforms coming in, there needs to be regulatory support to it. For example, currently under the Section 79 that we have, we really can't take Meta to the court and take away their safe harbor safeguards. And therefore, those tightenings are required. I'll defer to Khushbu's opinion on that. But there's a lot that needs to be done from here onwards. Unfortunately, we don't seem to be having a watershed moment, which is a crisis, and the country wakes up and says, we really need to do this. It's been, crisis after crisis is hitting us. The last time China got hit by a crisis was Tiananmen Square, after which they made sure that Western media in any form or shape does not interfere with China's internal governance and administration. That has not happened in India. We are completely open and run over by Western narratives, influences, and attacks through the media, and therefore social media is a very, very potent tool. It's weaponized, as all of us are well aware, and we need to have defense mechanisms against these weaponized social media.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. Khushbu Jain, your first and last comment, 30 seconds. Okay, we still don't have you. All right, let's take a break. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. Back on the other side with lots more. Don't go anywhere.